God is Delaying It for a Reason by Earl Nightingale. Lesson 1. The Seed of Patience. Time is perhaps our greatest teacher, and often our most challenging one. When we plant a seed in the ground, we cannot see the miracle happening beneath the soil. The farmer who goes out day after day, anxiously digging up the seed to check its progress, only delays the very harvest he seeks. This is the paradox of divine timing in our lives. I've spent many years studying success and human achievement, and I've discovered an immutable principle. Everything worthwhile follows natural laws that simply cannot be rushed. Just as an oak tree requires decades to reach its majestic height, the most meaningful blessings in your life often require seasons of waiting. This is what I call the garden principle, understanding that growth follows a divine timetable that no amount of human insistence can accelerate. There exists a critical distinction that, once understood, will transform your entire perspective on waiting. It's the difference between delay and denial. When God delays something in your life, He isn't refusing you the blessing. He's refining both you and the blessing. He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances, aligning relationships, and developing your character to handle the very thing you're waiting for. Those who succeed in life develop what I call the harvest mentality. They understand that success, like farming, follows seasons. There is a time for planting, a time for watering, a time for weeding, a time for weeding, and then, only after patient tending, comes the harvest. The person who expects immediate results will always abandon their garden too soon. I once spoke with a woman who had waited 7 years for a promotion she believed she deserved. Just as she was about to resign and seek opportunity elsewhere, the position opened with circumstances that made her uniquely qualified beyond all other candidates. Had I received this role when I first wanted it, she told me, I would have failed spectacularly. The delay wasn't denying me the position. It was preparing me to excel in it. Look at your life right now. What seeds are currently germinating beneath the surface? What dreams and desires have you planted that haven't yet broken through the soil? Instead of seeing the absence of visible progress as failure, recognize it as the natural gestation period that every worthwhile achievement requires. Just as a farmer cannot force a seed to grow faster by pulling on the sprout, we cannot rush God's timing by our impatience. The farmer who understands the seasons doesn't waste energy fretting about the invisible process happening underground. Instead, he uses the waiting period to prepare his tools, learn better techniques, and ready himself for the harvest to come. Your delay has purpose. It's teaching you persistence. It's developing your character. It's allowing essential elements to align. And perhaps most importantly, it's preparing you to properly steward the blessing when it arrives. The patience you practice today is not just waiting time. It's preparation time. And in this divine classroom of delay, you're learning lessons that will serve you long after your current desire is fulfilled. Lesson 2. When obstacles become opportunities. My friends, what appears as a roadblock in your path today may well be the very stepping stone you'll later recognize as essential to your journey. This is the magnificent paradox of life's obstacles. They often represent not dead ends, but divine redirections to something far better than we had originally envisioned. Consider for a moment the humble oyster. When an irritating grain of sand intrudes upon its comfortable existence, does it reject this unwelcome visitor? No, it responds by coating the intrusion with layer upon layer of nacre until, in time, what began as an irritant becomes a pearl of great value. The obstacle becomes the opportunity. This same principle operates in your life and mine. That delay in your promotion, that unexpected illness, that relationship that didn't materialize as you hoped, these are not random disappointments. They are carefully placed obstacles designed to redirect your energy toward opportunities you might otherwise have missed. Throughout history, we witness this truth, demonstrated repeatedly. Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground when he was 67 years old, destroying years of work. His response: thank goodness all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start fresh again. Within 3 weeks, he had developed the first phonograph. What appeared as catastrophe became the catalyst for creation. When Helen Keller was both blind and deaf before she was 2 years old, Who could have imagined these seemingly insurmountable obstacles would position her to inspire millions? When young Abraham Lincoln failed in business and lost multiple elections, these setbacks were preparing him for a presidency that would transform a nation. The preparation principle reveals that what we perceive as unnecessary delays are often essential periods of development. Just as a butterfly must struggle against the cocoon to develop the strength necessary for flight, our struggles against obstacles develop capacities within us that easy paths never could. Remove the struggle, and you've removed the strength. I encourage you today to create what I call an obstacle inventory. Take a sheet of paper and list every apparent roadblock currently frustrating your progress. Beside each one, write the question: what opportunity might be hidden within this obstacle? Then sit quietly and listen for the answers that will surely come. Remember, friends, that frustration can be converted into focused preparation. When the door seems locked before you, don't merely sit and stare at it in disappointment. Use that time to develop the skills, understanding, and character that will be required when the door finally swings open, as it surely will at the perfect moment. What appears as a detour is often the most direct route to your destiny. The obstacle in your path today may be God's way of preventing you from settling for less than His best for your life. Trust the process. Embrace the redirected path. For when we have eyes to see, obstacles truly do become our greatest opportunities. Lesson 3. The Miracle of the Mindset. The human mind is truly the most powerful, creative force on earth, yet many of us fail to harness its extraordinary potential. During periods of waiting, when God seems to delay the very things we desire most, our mindset becomes the decisive factor between despair and development. Your thinking patterns create the framework through which you experience everything in life. I've often said that we become what we think about, and this principle takes on special significance when we're in seasons of divine delay. Your mind is a magnificent thought factory, constantly producing ideas and perspectives that shape your reality. The quality of those thoughts determines not just how you feel during the waiting, but what you'll become through it. Consider the stark difference between expectation and desperation. When you wait with expectation, there's a healthy tension that keeps you alert and ready. There's peace mixed with anticipation. But when you wait in desperation, you're consumed by fear and doubt. Same circumstance, entirely different experience, all determined by what's happening in your mind. I encourage you to undertake what I call a 30-day mental diet. For 1 month, consciously eliminate all toxic thoughts during your period of waiting. When you catch yourself thinking, "This will never happen," or "God has forgotten me," immediately replace these thoughts with truths like, "Perfect timing is at work," or "This delay is preparing me for something greater." This isn't positive thinking for its own sake. It's aligning your thoughts with spiritual reality. Start keeping an evidence journal. Each day, write down past instances when timing worked out perfectly in your life, especially times when what initially seemed like terrible delays turned out to be perfectly orchestrated timing. This creates a personal history of providence that builds faith during future waiting periods. Visualization is another powerful tool. Spend 5 minutes each morning seeing your delay as purposeful and productive. Imagine the growth happening beneath the surface during this waiting time. Picture the strengthening of your character, the development of necessary skills, and the perfect alignment of circumstances that's currently underway. Your situation is determined not by what happens to you, but by what happens in you. 2 people can face identical delays. One becomes bitter, while the other becomes better. The circumstance is the same. The mindset makes all the difference. Think of Joseph in ancient Egypt, who spent years in prison for crimes he didn't commit. During that seeming delay, his leadership skills developed, his character strengthened, and his wisdom deepened. When his opportunity finally came, he was prepared in ways that would have been impossible without the waiting period. The miracle of mindset is that it transforms waiting from wasted time to workshop time. While circumstances remain unchanged, you're changing, becoming stronger, wiser, more patient, and more prepared for the very thing you're awaiting. This is the hidden gift in God's delays. They create the space for internal transformation that makes the eventual blessing sustainable. Your mind is the soil in which God plants the seeds of patience. Tend it carefully, for from it will grow the fruit. From it will grow the fruit of perfect timing. Lesson 4. Divine detours and heavenly holdup. Have you ever set out on a journey with your destination firmly fixed in your mind, only to encounter an unexpected detour? Those orange signs and barricades that force us to take an alternate route often trigger frustration. Yet these detours can be the very thing that brings new scenery into view, scenery we would have otherwise missed. Life operates in much the same way. We program our spiritual GPS with coordinates for success, happiness, or achievement, but God often recalculates our route. These divine detours aren't mistakes. They're masterful redirections. When your plans seem delayed, consider that you're not being denied. You're being divinely redirected. I remember the story of a woman who missed her flight despite arriving at the airport with plenty of time to spare. Long lines, a misplaced ticket, one small delay after another kept her from boarding. As she sat frustrated in the terminal, she received news that the very flight she missed had encountered serious mechanical troubles mid-air. What appeared to be an inconvenient delay was actually a life-preserving protection. Protection through postponement happens more often than we recognize. That job you didn't get, that relationship that didn't work out, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers, each may have been a heavenly holdup designed to shield you from unseen trouble ahead. But divine delays serve another critical purpose. They develop character. Just as a diamond requires pressure to form, your character needs the pressure of waiting to develop its full brilliance. Patience, perseverance, and faith are muscles that grow stronger only when exercised against resistance. The delay you're experiencing might be life's gymnasium, building spiritual strength you'll need for the journey ahead. Ask yourself, am I really ready for what I'm pursuing? Sometimes we chase dreams with underdeveloped character, insufficient wisdom, or incomplete preparation. God's delays often signal that while the dream is right, the timing is premature. The path is correct, but you may not yet be ready to walk it. In these moments, the delay isn't punishment. It's protection and preparation combined. While waiting in God's anteroom, practice the art of gratitude. Begin each morning by identifying 3 blessings that exist because of your current waiting period. Perhaps you've developed new skills, formed meaningful relationships, or discovered inner strengths you never knew existed. The waiting room of life often contains treasures we miss when focusing only on the closed door ahead. Remember, a delay is not a denial. It's a divine appointment with destiny. The path may wind differently than you expected, but the destination remains secure. Your job isn't to force open doors, but to follow faithfully as they open in their proper time. The next time you encounter a heavenly holdup or divine detour, resist the urge to force your way forward. Instead, look around with curious eyes and an open heart. Ask not only why is this happening, but what might this delay be preparing me for? In that space of wondering and waiting, you may discover the very purpose that makes the delay not just bearable, but beautiful. Lesson 5. The strength to keep standing. The human spirit is remarkably resilient. Like the mighty oak that stands firm against howling winds and driving rain, we too possess an inner strength that often remains undiscovered until circumstances demand its emergence. This strength, this capacity to endure, is perhaps the most precious gift that periods of waiting bestow upon us. Picture, if you will, a marathon runner. At mile 20, something extraordinary happens. It's called hitting the wall, that moment when every muscle fiber screams for relief, when the mind bargains desperately for permission to stop. What separates champions from the rest isn't natural ability, but rather what they do at this critical juncture. Champions keep moving forward, one painful step after another, knowing that breakthrough awaits just beyond their breaking point. Most people give up just before their miracle appears. They train for months, endure for months, endure for miles, sacrifice countless comforts, only to surrender moments before their greatest victory. The tragedy isn't in the trying, It's in the timing of the surrender. Had they continued for just a little longer, the finish line would have appeared on the horizon. Your life works in similar fashion. The universe operates on principles just as reliable as gravity. Among these is the principle of perseverance. That persistent effort, maintained despite difficulty, eventually yields results. Not immediately, but inevitably. During extended waiting periods, managing your emotional and spiritual energy becomes crucial. Think of your hope as a precious resource, something to be protected and nurtured. This means creating boundaries around negative influences. It means selecting carefully what you read, watch, and discuss. It means surrounding yourself with patience, builders rather than drainers. Consider Joseph of ancient times, who waited 13 years from his prophetic dreams to their fulfillment. During that time, he was betrayed, enslaved, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Yet in each situation, Joseph maintained his excellence. He didn't allow his circumstances to diminish his character. He understood that the waiting period wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. Daily resilience rituals anchor this understanding in practical reality. Begin each morning by acknowledging one good thing in your life. End each day by identifying one step forward, no matter how small. Create physical reminders of previous victories, tangible symbols that whisper you've overcome before. You'll overcome again. The oak tree teaches us that strength isn't built in moments of ease, but in seasons of resistance. With each gust of wind, its roots dig deeper. With each storm, its trunk grows sturdier. Without these challenges, it would remain fragile, vulnerable to even the slightest disturbance. Your delays serve a similar purpose. They're not punishment, they're preparation. They're not rejection, they're redirection. They're not the absence of God's power. They're the precise application of His wisdom. Remember this truth when weariness tempts you to abandon your post. The strength to keep standing isn't found in the absence of weakness, but in the decision to continue despite it. Your breakthrough may be just one more step away. Don't surrender now. The delay is developing something in you that only perseverance can produce, and that something will prove essential for where you're going next. Lesson 6. Hearing the whispers of wisdom. Have you ever noticed that in our most hectic moments, wisdom seems distant, but in our quietest times, answers often appear? My friends, this is no coincidence. The divine speaks not in thunderous commands, but in gentle whispers that require our attentive ears and peaceful hearts. When we face delays in life, we typically respond in one of two ways: with frustration that clouds our judgment, or with acceptance that opens our minds. Those who choose the latter discover something remarkable. Delays are often divine invitations to listen more carefully to the wisdom that surrounds us. Consider the difference between intuition and impulse. Impulse pushes us to act hastily, demanding immediate results. Intuition, however, is that quiet knowing that often emerges during periods of patient waiting. It doesn't shout, it whispers. As whispers contain the guidance we desperately seek. I once knew a young woman who had applied for her dream job. Week after week passed with no response. During that waiting period, instead of merely checking her email obsessively, she began spending 15 minutes each morning in quiet reflection. One morning, she felt a strange urge to take a different route to her temporary job. On this detour, she noticed a small company she'd never seen before. Something prompted her to inquire within. 6 months later, she was leading their marketing department in a role far better suited to her talents than the one she had originally pursued. This is the power of creating space for wisdom to enter. When we quiet our minds through practices like meditation, prayer, or simply sitting in silence, we tune into frequencies we otherwise miss in the static of hurried living. The universe speaks through signs and synchronicities too, those meaningful coincidences that feel like winks from above. Perhaps you've been pondering a difficult decision when suddenly the same advice comes from 3 different sources. Or maybe you open a book to exactly the passage you needed to read. These aren't random events, but guideposts along your journey. Many great thinkers throughout history maintained journals where they recorded insights received during periods of waiting. Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, and countless spiritual leaders practiced this discipline of capturing wisdom when it arrived. A simple notebook by your bedside can become a treasury of clarity that guides your steps long after the waiting period ends. Remember, friends, patience isn't passive. It's an active listening state. It's not about doing nothing. It's about creating space for something. When we fill every moment with noise, activity, and distraction, we leave no room for wisdom to enter. The next time you face a delay, instead of seeing it as an obstacle, recognize it as an opportunity to hear those whispers of wisdom. Turn down the volume of your worries. Sit in peaceful expectation. Keep a record of the insights that come. You'll be amazed at how often the answers we desperately seek outside ourselves are quietly waiting within. In the silence of patient waiting, the voice of wisdom is finally heard, and it will lead you exactly where you need to go, precisely when you need to arrive. Lesson 7. The promise behind the pause. Time. That mysterious dimension that seems to stand still when we're waiting for something important. Have you ever noticed how the minutes crawl by when you're anticipating good news, yet they fly when you're enjoying life? That's the paradox of waiting, and it contains profound wisdom if we have eyes to see it. The delay you're experiencing right now isn't empty space. It's fertile ground where something magnificent is taking shape beneath the surface. Just as a sculptor doesn't consider the time spent chiseling marble as wasted, God doesn't view your waiting period as lost time. There's purpose in every moment of pause. Consider the mighty oak tree. Before it commands attention with its towering presence, it spends years developing an extensive root system underground. During those early years, it might appear that little progress is happening, but those unseen roots ultimately determine how tall and strong the tree will stand. Your delay is developing your root system. What you may not realize is that your capacity must expand before your blessing arrives. Imagine receiving tomorrow what you've been asking for. Would you truly be ready? Many of us pray for promotion, but haven't developed the character to handle it. We ask for greater influence, but haven't mastered self-discipline. We desire abundance, but haven't learned stewardship. The preparation principle reveals that what appears as a frustrating delay is actually a purposeful development period. During this time, you're acquiring wisdom, building resilience, and forming the character needed to sustain what you're asking for. The greater the calling, the more extensive the preparation required. Look at any person of significant achievement, and you'll find they endured a substantial waiting period. Joseph spent years in prison before his leadership gift found expression. David was anointed king, but spent years in the wilderness before taking the throne. These weren't punishments, but preparation grounds where their character was forged. The growth that occurs while waiting simply cannot be manufactured any other way. Patience, for instance, cannot be developed except through situations that require waiting. Perseverance is only built by continuing despite difficulty. Faith muscles strengthen only when exercised against resistance. What if you viewed your current delay not as God withholding something good, but instead as God preparing something better? This perspective transforms frustration into anticipation. Remember, too, that timing is everything. An opportunity arriving too early can be as problematic as one arriving too late. The perfect convergence of your preparation and the right circumstances creates the optimal moment for your breakthrough. So while you wait, keep developing. Keep learning. Keep learning. The size of your delay often indicates the size of your destiny. Instead of asking, why is this taking so long? Perhaps the better question is, what am I becoming in this process? The promise behind the pause is that God is orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, and preparing you for something that will require every bit of growth you're gaining right now. Your waiting isn't wasted. It's the very soil from which your future success will spring. Lesson 8. Divine timing and perfect purpose. There's an old story about a farmer who found an eagle's egg and placed it in the nest of a barnyard hen. The eaglet hatched with the brood of chicks and grew up with them. All his life, the eagle did what the barnyard chickens did, thinking he was a chicken. He scratched the earth for worms and insects, clucked and cackled, and would fly no more than a few feet in the air. Years passed, and the eagle grew very old. One day he saw a magnificent bird far above him in the cloudless sky. Hanging with graceful majesty on the powerful wind currents, it soared with scarcely a beat of its strong golden wings. "What a beautiful bird," said the eagle to his neighbor. "What is it?" "That's an eagle, the king of birds," said the chicken. "But don't give it a second thought. You could never be like him." So the eagle never gave it another thought, and it died thinking it was a chicken. My friends, this represents what happens to many of us during times of delay. We forget who we are and what we're capable of becoming. We mistake God's timing for limitation. We mistake God's timing for limitation, when in reality, divine timing is the pathway to our highest purpose. When God delays something in your life, it's never random. The master conductor of the universe orchestrates every note of your life's symphony with perfect precision. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too soon, not a second too late. Consider the mighty oak tree. From a tiny acorn, it grows slowly, sometimes imperceptibly. Day by day, the oak doesn't question why it takes decades to reach its full height. It simply continues growing, following the divine blueprint encoded within it. Your life operates by similar principles. The time between planting and harvest, between prayer and manifestation, between dream and fulfillment, these periods aren't empty waiting. They're filled with invisible growth, preparation, and alignment. Think about Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading his people to freedom, or Joseph, who endured years in prison before his elevation to leadership in Egypt. These weren't accidents or cruel twists of fate. They were divine incubation periods. Each delay carries a distinct purpose, sometimes to protect you from dangers you cannot see, sometimes to prepare you for responsibilities you're not yet ready to bear, and sometimes to position other people and circumstances necessary for your breakthrough. The key to thriving in these waiting periods is recognizing that time isn't passing you by. It's working for you. Every moment of delay is gathering resources, aligning circumstances, and building your capacity for what's ahead. When we understand this principle, our perspective transforms. Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" we begin to ask, "What am I meant to learn during this season? How am I being prepared? What is being aligned on my behalf?" Remember this truth. God's delays are not His denials. They're His way of saying, "I have something better in mind, and it requires perfect timing." So today, embrace the waiting period with confidence. Look for the purpose behind the pause. Trust that the author of time knows exactly when to turn the page to the next chapter of your story. Your breakthrough isn't late, it's being perfected. Lesson 9. The divine timing of your breakthrough. There is a rhythm to the universe that we often fail to comprehend. Like the steady, unwavering tick of a cosmic clock, God's timing operates with precision that our limited human understanding cannot fully grasp. Think of it, my friends. Have you ever noticed how the most significant moments in your life seem to arrive not when you demanded them, but when the time was absolutely perfect? This is no accident. The delay you're experiencing right now isn't punishment. It's protection. It isn't a setback. It isn't a setback. It's a setup. God's delays are not denials. They are divine appointments carefully scheduled for your maximum benefit. Consider the humble butterfly. If you were to help it by cutting open its cocoon prematurely, thinking you were doing it a favor, you would actually cripple it forever. The struggle to emerge from that cocoon is precisely what forces fluid into its wings, giving them the strength to fly. Without that period of waiting and struggling, the butterfly would never soar. Your breakthrough is developing in much the same way. What appears as an unnecessary delay is actually the essential preparation period that will enable you to handle the blessing when it arrives. Too many people pray for strength, but avoid the waiting that develops it. They ask for wisdom, but resist the delays that cultivate it. I've observed that most achievements of lasting value follow this pattern of divine delay. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Abraham Lincoln endured defeat after defeat before reaching the presidency. The biblical Josephs spent years in prison before his elevation to leadership. In each case, what appeared to be wasted time was actually the formation period for greatness. Remember this principle. God's delays are not idle periods. They are incubation periods. Just as a farmer plants seeds and then waits through seasons before harvest, your breakthrough is growing underground even when you see no evidence above the surface. During this waiting time, maintain your expectancy. Expectancy is the breeding ground of miracles. The person who rises each morning with the attitude that today could be the day positions themselves to recognize opportunity when it arrived. Too many give up just moments before their breakthrough would have manifested. They plant seeds of effort, but abandon the field right before harvest. Your responsibility during this delay is not to force doors open, but to prepare yourself so thoroughly that when the door does open, you're ready to walk through it with confidence. Use this time to develop your skills, strengthen your character, and deepen your faith. The delay is not denying you the blessing. It's developing you for it. God exists outside of time. What feels like an excruciating delay to you is merely a moment in eternity. Trust that the master planner sees the entire picture while you see only a single frame. Your breakthrough will come not a moment too soon or too late, but at the precise moment when you can receive it fully. Hold on, my friend. Your divine appointment is approaching. The delay has a purpose, and that purpose is greater than anything you could orchestrate yourself. Lesson 10. The divine timing of delayed dreams. There exists a beautiful symphony in the universe, a rhythm of timing that often escapes our immediate understanding. I've discovered through my many years of observation that God's delays are not his denials. Rather, they are the precision instruments of divine timing, working to orchestrate the most magnificent outcomes in our lives. Consider the watchmaker who places each tiny gear with exquisite care. Every component must be perfectly positioned before the mechanism can function as designed. Our lives operate with similar precision. What appears as delay to us is often the master craftsman carefully positioning the final pieces that will make our dreams not just possible, but perfect. You see, we live in an impatient world. We have instant coffee, instant messaging, and instant gratification. But the most valuable things in life, character, wisdom, and meaningful achievement, cannot be microwaved. They must be cultivated through the slow cooking process of time and experience. I once spoke with a woman who had waited 12 years for her dream of becoming a published author. During those years of rejection letters, she continued refining her craft. When her book was finally published, it reached millions and changed countless lives. Had her dream been fulfilled at the first attempt, it would have been merely good instead of transformative. The delay wasn't punishment. It was preparation for greatness. Many of us misunderstand the nature of time in the divine economy. We see time as linear, while God views it panoramically. What seems like wasted months or years to us may be precisely the incubation period needed for our dreams to hatch at the perfect moment, when all conditions are optimal for success. Remember this fundamental truth. Everything worthwhile has a waiting period attached to it. The farmer plants in faith knowing harvest requires patience. The mother carries her child for 9 months, understanding that development cannot be rushed. The sculptor chips away at marble day after day, recognizing that masterpieces emerge gradually. When you find yourself in a waiting season, ask yourself, what am I learning now that I'll need later? What character qualities am I developing that will sustain me when my dream arrives? The delay is rarely empty. It's filled with preparation, if we have eyes to see it. Consider Joseph in ancient times. 13 years passed between his prophetic dreams and their fulfillment. During those years, through slavery and imprisonment, he developed the leadership skills and wisdom necessary to save nations. Had his dreams been fulfilled immediately, he would have been woefully unprepared for their magnitude. Your delayed dream isn't forgotten or abandoned. It's being perfected behind the scenes. Think of it as a gift being wrapped with exquisite care. The longer the wrapping takes, the more spectacular the gift often is. So take heart today. That dream that seems delayed is actually developing. It's growing roots before it shows fruit. It's gathering strength before it emerges, and when it finally arrives, you'll understand why the timing had to be exactly as it was. Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late, but perfectly on time according to the divine schedule that orchestrates all of life's most beautiful symphonies. Lesson 11. The final stretch before breakthrough. When a ship is approaching land after a long journey across the vast ocean, there is often a curious phenomenon that occurs. The winds may suddenly die down, the currents might shift unexpectedly, or fog may descend without warning. Sailors throughout history have noted this strange resistance that seems to arise just before reaching their destination. My friends, the same principle operates in the journey of our dreams and divine appointments. You see, the final stretch before breakthrough is often the most challenging. It's as if the universe conspires to test your resolve one last time before delivering what you've been waiting for. This isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the final examination before graduation. The intensity increases not because you're doing something wrong, but precisely because you're about to experience something remarkable. Think about a woman in labor. The contractions become most painful and frequent, not at the beginning of labor, but right before the child is born. The darkest hour truly does come before the dawn. This principle operates consistently throughout nature and human experience. When God delays your blessing until this critical moment, He's not being cruel. He's ensuring you're fully ready to receive, appreciate, and properly steward what's coming. The delay isn't denial, it's divine timing working in perfect order. The farmer doesn't harvest until the crop is ready, regardless of how eager he might be to bring in the yield. I've spoken with countless people who were on the verge of giving up, only to discover later that their breakthrough was merely days or weeks away. Had they abandoned their post, they would have missed the very thing they had been seeking all along. The tragedy isn't in waiting. It's in walking away moments before the waiting would have ended. Remember Joseph in his prison cell? For years he languished, forgotten, and abandoned, but when his moment came, he was elevated from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. Had he given up hope the week before Pharaoh's dream? Had he given up hope the week before Pharaoh's dream, history would have unfolded very differently. The intensity of your current challenge may well be the strongest indicator that you're on the cusp of transformation. Like a rocket requiring the most fuel during the final phase of breaking free from Earth's gravitational pull, you too need extra strength for this final push. This is where your faith, perseverance, and resolve are most critical. Many of life's greatest disappointments come from surrendering, when victory was just around the corner. The gold miner who sells his claim after months of fruitless digging, only to have the new owner strike gold a few feet deeper. The inventor who abandons his project, only to see someone else complete the same idea and transform an industry. Your delay has purpose. The resistance you feel signals proximity to your destination, not distance from it. The obstacles intensify. The obstacles intensify because the prize is near. So take heart and stay the course. This final stretch, though difficult, is preparing you for a blessing that requires the strength you're developing right now. When it arrives, you'll understand why this particular timing was perfect all along. Lesson 12. The triumphant dawn of tomorrow. The greatest battles are often fought in the final hours of darkness, just before the dawn breaks through. And so it is with you, as you stand at the threshold of Lesson 12, the culmination of our journey together through the valleys and mountaintops of divine delay. Throughout these pages, we've discovered together that God's timing is neither random nor cruel, but precisely calibrated to prepare us for blessings our current selves could not yet handle or appreciate. We've learned that the waiting room is actually a classroom, where the lessons of patience, perseverance, and faith are taught not through lectures, but through lived experience. Consider the mighty oak tree. It begins as a humble acorn, spending months in the dark soil before even a single sprout appears. Then years pass, decades even, as it slowly stretches toward the sky. The oak never questions its purpose or doubts its process. It simply continues growing according to the wisdom programmed into its very being. You possess this same wisdom, this same divine programming. Life's delays are not punishments, but preparations. When you find yourself waiting longer than expected for that promotion, that relationship, that healing, or that breakthrough, remember that you are not being denied. You are being developed. The Master Creator is at work, arranging circumstances, removing obstacles, and most importantly, expanding your capacity to receive what He has promised. I've spoken with thousands of successful people across every field of human endeavor, and I've discovered a common thread among them all. They understood that timing is everything. They learned to work with the rhythm of life rather than fighting against it. They recognized that pushing against divine timing only creates frustration, while aligning with it creates flow. You see, impatience is often disguised fear. Fear that what we want won't happen, fear that we're being forgotten, fear that we're being forgotten, fear that others will reach their destination before us. But fear is a faulty compass that always points in the wrong direction. Faith, however, is the true north that guides us through the darkness of delay into the light of fulfillment. Tomorrow's triumph is being fashioned in today's patience. The dream delayed is not the dream denied. It is the dream being perfected. Every great achievement in human history emerged not from hurried, frantic action, but from steady, persistent effort aligned with divine timing. As we close this final chapter, I leave you with this truth. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. The darkest hour truly does come just before dawn. The seeds you've planted, the patience you've practiced, and the perseverance you've demonstrated are all about to bear fruit in ways you cannot yet imagine. Remember, God is delaying it for a reason, and that reason is always ultimately love. Trust the process. Embrace the waiting and prepare yourself for the magnificent unfolding that awaits you just around the corner. Your time is coming, my friend, and when it arrives, you'll understand that the waiting wasn't just worth it. It was essential to the glory of what comes next.